Hola, it's Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for episode number 46 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. I'm going to go ahead and tag a few friends. If you're watching the recorded video and you've already heard my introduction, feel free to go ahead and fast forward a few minutes. So just tagging a few friends, letting them know that we're live and that we'll be starting soon. Here we go, tagging a few friends. Really excited about this episode. I'm sure you're going to love it. It was a lot of fun working on the content for this episode. And again, just tagging some friends, letting them know that we're live and that we're going to get started momentarily. So I think we're just about done. Yeah. Do that one. Okay. So I think we're good there. Awesome. We already got Thea Emmylou watching. Shout out to Thea Emmylou. Thea Emmylou, if you could do me a favor and throw some hearts up in the air or something, if you're able. I know sometimes people are jogging and whatnot, but if you're able, yep, there they go. So you can hear me. So that was my sound check. Awesome. And we got more people joining now as well. So Dr. Michelle Yanez, shout out. Can I do two shout outs? So shout out to Thea Emmylou. Shout out to Dr. Michelle Yanez, my collaborator, my co-host for our Saturday shows. Again, Beto here for episode number 46 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. Today's Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all who are celebrating. I'm just going to give a brief introduction to allow some folk to join. We just tagged some people. And once we get the audience going, then we'll get going on the content of the show. But again, one more time, Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for episode number 46 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. Episode number 46 is entitled Juneteenth, Kevin Durant, Maria Sharapova, and the Medical Industrial Complex. Today is Sunday, June 20th, 2021. Really excited about this episode. It's fun, entertaining, insightful. We're gonna make it happen. It's gonna be awesome. So a little bit about myself. Again, Beto, your daily divinity coach. I post daily during the week, about a paragraph or so, and I put that post on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. That's actually how I started all this social media almost 2 years ago now. Started with posting. It's written posts. And then I also do this. I'm live every Sunday for Sunday Weekly Revival, which is a preparation of original content that I deliver here on Facebook Live as well as Instagram Live. And it's a lot of fun, and I'm very appreciative of all that watch. Whether live, if you can watch live, or those that watch the recorded video. Some do both. They watch it live and they go back and watch it again, especially if they've missed any part of it. So I do this. The first Sunday of every month, I'm here with you live, but I don't do Sunday Weekly Revival. Instead, I do my monthly mailbag, and that's I take your pre-submitted questions and I use that as content of the show, and I provide insightful responses, prepared responses to those questions. I also have a Saturday show with my co-host, collaborator, Dr. Michelle Yanez, called Live and Unscripted, and we have guests come on who are doing positive things, and it's a very fun and entertaining show, and we do that 2 Saturdays a month. Although sometimes if a guest can't do a Saturday for they're working or whatnot, we may end up doing it on a Wednesday night or another day. So keep a lookout for those advertisements. Or sometimes the time changes, right? They can't do a certain hour but a different hour. So always look at those advertisements for our show, Live and Unscripted. But that's a blast. It's a lot of fun. I love doing those shows. And I also make bracelets. I produce bracelets, so they're very colorful, the new ones. If you haven't received your bracelets yet, reach out. They're free, and if you live within the U.S., it's always free shipping. And until the end of the month, which is coming soon, I guess 10 more days, free shipping if you live in Europe or North America. So please reach out. Unfortunately, for those in India and Brazil and other places, it is cost prohibitive to ship these. But if you're here in the U.S., reach out. I just need a name and address, and I'll get it out to you. My background, and then we'll get started on the content of the show. My background, I talk about the law of attraction, speaking things into existence, positive affirmations. Was trained in such from as a young child, growing up. I also talk about liberation theology, social justice. I am a graduate of Harvard University Divinity School, where I studied with the likes of Cornel West and others. And liberation theology and social justice was really my path, our course of study when I was there. And I talk about being ageless, manifesting immortality, which is a big part of today's episode. And that was really a 10-year self-study that I went through. So I'd never had a immortality coach or being ageless professor or anything like that. It was just me going out and studying this on my own. And that 10-year study actually culminated in me coming on social media. I never had an Instagram account before. And Facebook, I just used to post pictures of me and my son at rugby games. So this is all very new, and it's been within the last 2 years. So anyhow, enough about me. Let's get going on the content of the show. But once again, if you're celebrating Father's Day, happy Father's Day. So 3 days ago, on Thursday, United States President Joe Biden signed into law Juneteenth as a federal holiday. It's now the 12th federal holiday. 12 months, 12 holidays, although I think there's a month or two where there's 2 holidays. But anyhow, it is the 12th federal holiday now. It's the first one signed into law since 1983. The last time we got a new federal holiday was 1983, and that was Martin Luther King Day. But Thursday, Juneteenth, became our 12th federal holiday in the U.S. What is Juneteenth? Well, although slavery was abolished in the U.S. when then U.S. President Lincoln signed into law the Emancipation Proclamation, there's still a war going on, right? There's a civil war between the Union and the Confederate Army, and the Confederates hadn't fully surrendered yet. They did, but it actually took 30 months from the time the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, nearly 30 months, until the last slaves were freed. And that was on June 19th, 1865. That was when the slaves in Texas were finally freed. They were the last holdout, right? Texas was the last holdout, and finally the slaves in Texas were free, and so then across the United States, all slaves were free. So that's Juneteenth. That's what we celebrate now on Juneteenth. Well, it's been a holiday here too. So in Texas, it's been a holiday for decades, right? It's been a holiday here for a while because my son, he gets off Juneteenth from school. But that wasn't the case across the nation, but now it is. So in celebration of Juneteenth, what I wanted to do is I have a colleague, and my colleague, he lives in New York City now, but he's actually from Texas. He's only been in New York City for a few years. He's actually from Texas. So this is a while back. We were talking about Juneteenth and how it's a big deal. It's a big holiday in Texas. And we started talking about the Middle Passage. And how he's talking about how miraculous it actually is that he's here, that his ancestors survived the Middle Passage. And so in honor of Juneteenth, I wanted to talk about the Middle Passage. It wasn't too long ago. Recently, I talked about the Holocaust, right? The genocide of European Jews, right? 6 million during the World War II. 2 out of every 3, right? A European Jew died in that Holocaust, right? That genocide that took place in Europe, again, during World War II. I've talked about the genocide of indigenous Americans, right? Somewhere between 90 and 95% of our people, my people, were annihilated, right? When the colonizers came over from Europe. But I hadn't talked about the Middle Passage. I did talk about the high mortality rate in Haiti, right? I did an episode about the Haitian Revolution, talked about the high mortality rate there amongst Africans, particularly African slaves in Haiti. I've talked about South Africa, right? Slavery in South Africa, mortality rates in Indonesia, right? And from the Dutch India Company during slavery. But I hadn't talked about the Middle Passage, so I wanted to do that today. Statistics vary. But upwards of 15 million enslaved Africans made the trek across the Atlantic to the Americas, what they call the Middle Passage. Enslaved Africans were shipped to other places, but approximately 15 million made that Middle Passage on slave ships across the Atlantic. Upwards of 2.4 million of those upwards of 15 million died during that voyage on those slave ships across the Atlantic. And then approximately 5 million more died upon their arrival within the first year in the colonies, right, in the Americas. So what happened was when they arrived in the America, they're put in what they called seasoning camps in the Caribbean, and 5 million more of those that made it, right, died in those seasoning camps. So approximately half, about 7.4 million, approximately. Again, the statistics vary, but approximately 7.4 million, or approximately half of those 15 million, died within their first year, either during the Middle Passage, on those sea voyages, on those slave ships across the Atlantic, or in those seasoning camps in the Caribbean. So a high mortality rate during that first year of confinement for African slaves. But I just wanted to make sure I honored Juneteenth. I talked about the Middle Passage because I hadn't talked about it before. I've talked about a lot of other things, but I wanted to make sure I spoke to that. So we're going to move on now. We're going to talk about Kevin Durant, right? The basketball future Hall of Famer, right? The sports icon, Kevin Durant. Last night, Kevin Durant plays for the Brooklyn Nets. Well, now he plays for the Brooklyn Nets. And last night, unfortunately, his team lost. But he gave a magnificent performance. And what's really miraculous about his performance last night in Game 7 of the Brooklyn Nets series against the Milwaukee Bucks is this, that only 2 years prior, when Kevin Durant was playing for the Golden State Warriors, and they're going for a three-peat, they're going for 3 NBA World Championships in a row, he ruptured his Achilles tendon. This just happened 2 years ago in 2019. He ruptured his Achilles tendon during those playoffs, actually during the NBA Finals. And so him to come back from that devastating injury and to perform the way he has been of late, especially last night and during this series against the Milwaukee Bucks, is nothing short of miraculous. So what did he do last night? You know, I love my statistics. Numbers don't lie, right? So I'm going to be throwing out some numbers. But here's what he did last night. Durant scored 48 points, and it was the most points ever scored in a Game 7. So phenomenal play, right, from this player who, again, not too long ago had suffered a ruptured Achilles tendon. And then in that same series recently, right, with the same series against the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 5, so a few days before, in Game 5 of the series, Durant recorded the first 45 plus, 15 plus, 10 plus in playoff history, NBA playoff game ever. It's never happened before. What were his statistics? He made 49 points. And that was on 16 of 23 shot attempts. So 49 points, 17 rebounds, right? So 49 points, so 45 plus. He's, went past 45, 17 rebounds. So he got more than that 15 rebounds, right? He got 17, and then he got exactly 10 assists. So he got that 45 plus, 15 plus, 10 plus that had never been done before. And on top of that, he added 3 steals and 2 block shots. So incredible. Incredible play by Kevin Durant in Game 5 and Game 7. The statistics, right? Numbers don't lie. Unbelievable. Now, when we look at Kevin Durant's performance this year, right, coming back from that devastating Achilles tendon rupture versus his overall career performance, how does it stack up? How does the numbers stack up? Well, if you look at this year, Durant averaged 26.9 points per game. Right, 26.9. If you look at his overall career, 27.0. 26.9, 27.0, relatively the same, right? Pretty much the same. So no difference, right? Then you look at his rebounds. This year, 2020-2021 season, he had 7.1 rebounds. You look at his career, guess what? 7.1 rebounds. So exactly the same, not just relatively, but exactly the same, right? So points per game, basically the same. Rebounds, exactly the same. What about his assists? Well, before the, career-wide, 4.2. Career-wide, 4.2 is average assists per game. Guess what? This year, even higher, 5.6 assists per game. So 5.6 versus 4.2. So when you look at those three statistics, right, probably the most important statistics, points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game, better overall, better than his career, better than before the Achilles injury. So unbelievable. And he's also like in that playoff game that I previously mentioned, Game 5, he played all 48 minutes. It wasn't like he just, he'd getting rest and whatnot. He played all 48 minutes. So amazing, right? Amazing for a player to come off Achilles injury and not just to play as well as before. Well, first of all, to play, but, to come back and play again, but then to play as well, if not better than before, it is nothing short of miraculous. Robert Anderson, he's a surgeon who has treated Durant in the past. He said this. He said, it used to be the kiss of death. You had an Achilles rupture and your career was over. And what he says is true. It wasn't too long ago. If you're an NBA basketball player, pro basketball player, and you had Achilles injury, that's it. You're done. Hall of Famer, and I'll give you some examples. Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas. Remember Isaiah Thomas? It wasn't too long ago that he played. I remember watching him when I was... I'm still a young man, but when I was a younger man, Isaiah Thomas, Detroit Pistons, he retired early after 13 season career due to a tear, right, Achilles tendon tear. Now I don't remember watching him play, but Hall of Famer Elgin Baylor, some of you remember him. He attempted in 1970 to come back from a torn Achilles. Only to call back the comeback after 9 games. So miraculously he came back, but after 9 games, he's like, no mas, right? He couldn't do it. It was just too much. For those of you on the West Coast, right, especially in the greater LA area, Kobe Bryant, right? Hall of Famer Kobe Bryant, right? He came back. He came back from a ruptured Achilles, but never returned to prime form. Right, never returned to prime form. So these 3 Hall of Famers, Isaiah Thomas, Elgin Baylor, Kobe Bryant, are examples that it's really, really hard, right? Really hard to come back from a torn Achilles as a pro basketball player. And not only did Durant come back, but he performed as well, if not better, than before. So what does science and medicine say about Kevin Durant, right? He's a case study. It says this, that science and medicine's evolved, right? We've evolved when it comes to ruptured Achilles and what's possible. But science, physics, right, has not evolved when it comes to reversing the negative effects of aging. Despite the evidence, right? Despite the evidence, namely the counterclockwise study of Harvard University professor of psychology, Ellen Langer. Ellen Langer is actually the first woman ever to be tenured in psychology at Harvard. And I did an episode where I talked about this, right? Not too long ago. She did a counterclockwise study and proved that we can reverse the negative effects of aging. And she had an experimental group, a control group, the whole thing, right? In only 5 days, right? Evidence of this, right? And this is what Ellen Langer says. She says, it's time to open our minds, right? We need to open our minds to what's possible instead of presuming impossibility, right? Like Kevin Durant. And not too long ago, people would have just assumed it's impossible for him to come back, right? But not only did he come back, but he performed possibly at a higher level than before the Achilles rupture. Nelson Mandela, one of my favorite quotes. It always seems impossible until it's done, right? So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Maria Sharapova now. So Maria Sharapova, she was born April 19, 1987. Who is she? She's a Russian former tennis pro. She's actually been a U.S. permanent resident since 1994. She competed on the Women's Tennis Association Tour, right, the WTA Tour from 2001 to 2020. So she actually retired recently, right, just last year. Long career, 20 years. She was ranked number 1 in singles by the WTA 5 different times, totaling 21 weeks. So an amazing player, right? One of only 10 women to win all 4 major championships, the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the U.S. Open, which what they call the career Grand Slam. She's only one of 10 women all time to do that. And she's won a total of 5 Grand Slams, 5 of those events. And get this, her career earnings are unbelievable. In her career, she earned a total of $325 million. $325 million from prize money, from endorsements and appearances. She ranks only second. She's second all time amongst women. Number 1 is Serena Williams. Number 2, Maria Sharapova when it comes to all-time earnings for her career. So why am I bringing up Maria Sharapova other than to say she's a great tennis player? Well, I'm bringing her up for this reason. In 2008, so she's 7 years into her pro career, right? In 2008, she suffered a torn rotator cuff. I can't remember which side it was, but she suffered a torn rotator cuff. And when this happened, right, fairly recently, 2008, recovery from a torn rotator cuff for a tennis professional was relatively unheard of, right? For the most part, if you got a torn rotator cuff and you're a pro tennis player, you're pretty much done, right? Nevertheless, not only did Sharapova recover from her torn rotator cuff, but just 3 years after that devastating injury, she became the world's #1 ranked women's tennis player, right? So what people presumed was impossible, Maria Sharapova showed us it's possible, right? And why is this? Why are these things possible? Why was Kevin Durant able to recover from that Achilles tendon injury and to play as well as possibly even better than before? Why was Maria Sharapova able to come from what people thought was impossible injury, right, to overcome that rotator cuff injury and become world's ranked #1 tennis player? Well, it's this. It's our bodies are made of stardust. And this is science. This is real. Our bodies are made of stardust, and as a result have the ability to regenerate themselves. As a matter of fact, every couple of years, nearly all the cells, our entire bodies regenerate themselves. Even our brains, thanks to neuroplasticity, can overcome trauma and learn new things at any age. Remember that old saying, old dogs can't learn new tricks? It's a lie. It's an untruth. It's false. Via neuroplasticity, not only can we overcome trauma, but we can learn new things at any age. And guess what? You don't have to be a pro athlete to activate the stardust within you, to activate the neuroplasticity. Anybody can do it. It's a free gift from the divine. You don't have to be Kevin Durant, right? You don't have to be Maria Sharapova. You don't have to be Vinny Paz. Remember in the past I've talked about Vinny Paz, right? The pride of Providence, Rhode Island, the professional boxer who suffered a devastating car accident and broke his neck. They told him he'd be lucky to walk again, right? Not only did Vinny Paz walk again, he competed as a professional in boxing again. Not only did he compete as a professional in boxing again, he actually won another. He's already champion once before. He won another world championship. Not only did he do that, but he defeated twice the legend, right? The icon, Roberto Durant, right? Manos de piedra, right? Hands of stone, Roberto Durant beat him twice after, right, breaking his neck. But again, you don't have to be a Vinny Paz. You don't have to be a Maria Sharapova. You don't have to be a Kevin Durant. It's the ability is there within all of us. It's inside of all of us. So I often get this question. All right, Beto, I hear what you're saying about stardust and neuroplasticity and all this great stuff, but why don't others, right? Why don't others talk about manifesting immortality, being ageless, reversing the negative effects of aging? People are always looking for somebody else, right? Why isn't other people doing it? Why is it just you? Well, here's the thing, is there are obviously those who could talk about this stuff. There's people in the know, obviously, but a lot of folk are invested, right, in complexes, in the military-industrial complex. They're invested in the prison-industrial complex, these complexes that oppress the least of these, right? And then guess what? The medical-industrial complex. So they're invested in these complexes. So they want their desire is to perpetuate the status quo, right? And the continued oppression of the least of these, and oftentimes the working class, the middle class as well. Because they're invested. They're invested. So we've talked in the past about the prison-industrial complex. We've talked about the military-industrial complex, but we hadn't talked about the medical-industrial complex, and that's what I want to do as part of today's show. So what is the medical-industrial complex? Well, in the 1970s, profit-seeking corporate entities, right, corporations, emerged as serious stakeholders in the U.S. healthcare industry. So, for example, manufacturers of medical devices. They fund medical education programs. They actually directly fund physicians and hospitals, And as a result, they want something in return, right? They want these hospitals, these physicians, right, these schools to adopt use of their devices, right? Makes sense. I give you something, I get something back, right? Here's the issue with that. There's an inherent bias, there's an increased pressure to generate profits, right? Because these are corporations. That's what they do. They generate profits. And as a result, that pressure oftentimes decreases creativity and innovation. Because if I have a device and I can continue every year get you to adopt this device, and I don't have to go out and reinvest in innovation to make a better device and whatnot, then my profit margin goes higher and higher and higher every year, right? So what's the result? Innovation is, it's tampered, right? It's decreased, right? We could have more innovations, right? But because of the medical industrial complex, it slows that innovation process down because the powers that be, the lords of scarcity, value those profits more than they do innovation, right? Innovation. Also, another piece of the medical industrial complex, the management of these health organizations, they're business folk, right? Not all of them, but a lot of them, they're business folk. They're MBAs. They've been taught to maximize profits, right? They weren't taught to do these other things, right? That would benefit the patient and public health as a whole. Their business model is maximize profit via the overuse of high price tag procedures, high price tag diagnostic tests, high price tag medications. That's the business model. And who suffers? Public health suffers, but the patients suffer as well. Patients too often, and I've seen it, end up going bankrupt because of the high cost of healthcare. Not only that, and I've seen this too, patients have foregone the healthcare altogether because it's so expensive. Especially the least of these, right? And the middle class and the working class too. But either gone bankrupt or foregone healthcare, all as a result of high costs, right? That's perpetuated by the medical industrial complex. So it's all about profit and power, right? It's all about profit and power for, the lords of scarcity. That's what they are, right? The lords of scarcity. Here's the other piece of the medical industrial complex is they're lobbyists. They're donating, right? They're donating to the campaigns of U.S. senators, right? Our elected officials, you're supposed to be representing us. U.S. senators, House of Representatives, right? They're lobbying and they're donating, right, to their campaigns. And as a result, they want something back, right? So if I'm going to donate $1 million, dollars to your campaign, Senator, I want you to vote for this, right, legislation. And as a result of that legislation, I'm going to end up making tenfold back or more. I mean, it's a very lucrative business. If you look at the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, when their lobbyists, donate to elected officials, they get back multiply dollars back in revenue from this legislation. So it's a very lucrative business. They make a lot of money off lobbying our elected officials. So anyhow, the big thing is, this is the big reason. This is a big reason as to why you don't hear the information that I provide on my shows, right? You don't hear about neuroplasticity and our ability to overcome trauma, right? And learn new things at any age, right? Instead, you hear what? Old dogs can't learn new tricks, right? That's the lord of scarcity. That's what they want you to think. It's not true. It's an untruth. You don't hear about our stardust. Our bodies are made of stardust and have the ability to regenerate themselves. Nearly every couple of years, our bodies do actually generate themselves. Nearly all of our cells. They don't want that out there. The lords of scarcity don't want that out there. The medical industrial complex don't want us, getting a hold of that, right? They don't want to. They'd rather us say things like, "Well, when I die, my body will perish, but my spirit will rise," right? They want to hear things like, "Well, when when I die, I'm energy, and we're all energy, and my energy will live on. That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear the teachings of being ageless, of manifesting immortality, right? Of activating your stardust, activating your neuroplasticity, because there's no profit in it, right, for them. And that's what the Lord of Scarcities are all about, right? They're all about profit, control, money, power. So enough about all of that stuff. Last week, I made an announcement that my collaborator, Dr. Michelle Yanez, and myself, and us other trusted supporters and whatnot, are going to be working on a new curriculum. We're going to come up with a new way to deliver, and we're going to use these teachings of Sunday Weekly Revival, my monthly mailbag questions, as the foundation for this adult curriculum for adult learning. And it's really a way to get this information, right, and get it in your brains, in your spirits, right, and in your bodies, so that you absorb this information that's being provided. And so, we've already had a couple people say, yeah, I want this curriculum. We're going to start with a focus group in the fall. And so we're just starting to work on the rough outline of what it's going to look like. But we've already had a couple people say, I'm all in, I want to be part of the focus group. The focus group will get the curriculum for free. And as a result, they're committing to providing feedback so that we can perfect the curriculum. And so it's really exciting. I have friends. I'm in Boston, right? It's the adult learning capital of the world, right? There's people who work in adult learning everywhere, right? And universities everywhere. And so I got friends that are starting to provide feedback. Matter of fact, one of them works at arguably the world's premier higher institution of higher education, and said, just make sure if you're going to give out certificates of completion that, people like them printed, right? They like to put them on the walls with the emblems and stuff. So, I'm getting advice from people who write curriculum for adults, who deliver curriculum for adults, and who market the curriculum. There's people with specific jobs just to market curriculum for adults. So anyhow, we have a tremendous support from people. And but I've been asked recently, so what's it going to look like? I'm like, we're just starting to talk about it. But, as you know, I don't like to evade questions. So I'm going to provide you with our rough working outline. This is what we're looking at right now. In the fall is, and it's possibly changed. This is just a rough outline, but we're looking at probably doing 8 sessions in the fall, and we're going to do it modular, right? So there'll be modules. The reason for this is that when we go out, right, and take the show on the road, so to speak, people who have a full day, they can do all 8 sessions, or they have full 2 days, we can come up with another 8 sessions. But if they only have an hour, a couple hours, and they only want to do a module or a couple modules, we'll have a menu of options for them, right? So here's, our ideas. Again, this isn't done. It's not written in stone, right? It's just a rough outline. But we're looking at 8 different modules, and one we had thought about was about abundance, right? Abundance includes all good things. How awesome would that module be, right? Who wouldn't want to take that? Abundance includes all good things. Who wouldn't want to take that module? Thinking differently about time. Sounds like a great module, right? Thinking differently about time. How about this one? Living in the present, past, and future moment, right? There's a lot of talk out there about living in the present moment and how important that is. What about a module on living in the present, past, and future moment, right? Because we know when we speak things into existence, what are we doing? We're living in the future moment, but in the here and now, right? What do we do when we talk about the past, but we put it in the present tense? We're activating our stardust, right? We're helping reverse the negative effects of aging. That was the basis of Ellen Langer's study, right? The Harvard University professor of psychology. That was the basis of her counterclockwise study, right? Was to talk about the past, but in the present tense. Put yourself there. Put yourself back where you were there and do in the present. So I think that would be a great one. I'm really excited about that module, living in the present, past, and future moment. You got to do one on being ageless, right? A module on being ageless, and you have to do one on manifesting immortality. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. How about this module, becoming righteous? How awesome would that be, right? Becoming righteous. A module on experiencing a miraculous and limitless life. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to expect a miraculous and limitless life? And how about a module on bringing others along for the ride? So these are just some ideas that we have. We're throwing around. Again, nothing written in stone, but just want to provide answers to those who've been asking as to what this may or may not look like. But here's the thing is we want to make this an experience. We want to make it a multi-sensory experience. We are going to borrow from best adult instructional practices, but we want to do something different, right? We want to do something big, something that's going to pop, right? Something Hollywood, right? Hollywood big, right? It's going to pop. It's going to take that content and make it part of not just your mind, your thinking, but part of your body, right? Part of your spirit, your soul. So we want to make it multi-sensory. What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, we want to integrate music, right? We want to integrate music. We want to integrate the arts. We want to integrate dance, right? Art itself, right? We want to integrate art. We want to integrate acting, poetry, right? We want to make this multi-sensory and fun and entertaining and make it pop, right? Make it Hollywood. We want to incorporate meditation, visualization, yoga, right? Stretching, breathing. We want to just make it awesome. And it's going to be an awesome experience. I'm speaking it into existence right now. We started last week and I'm continuing to do this. I'm speaking this curriculum into existence, and it's already starting to happen. So again, we've already had a few people register for the focus group, and we don't even have a registry list yet. They just said, yeah, I want to do this. I'm excited, right? So it's going to be awesome, and there'll be more information forthcoming. But again, looking to do this in the fall with the focus group and providing the curriculum for free. And then we'll get, the commitment is that the focus group will provide feedback, right? So we can perfect, and also testimonials, so that we can look to take the road on the show, or excuse me, the show on the road, not the road on the show, the show on the road. So anyhow, that's enough. I've gone over my time, as is my custom. But again, happy Father's Day to all who are celebrating Father's Day. This has been episode number 46 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival, episode 46 on Sunday, June 20th. Father's Day. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off now. But blessings. May you have an enjoyable day or evening, rest of your day or evening, wherever you may be. And I hope you can join next week here live on Facebook Live. And if you missed any part of this show, I am going to post a recorded video so you can go back and watch that. And please share with your friends. That would be great if you share the information, this video with your friends. So again, turning it off now, but blessings, and hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.